Hey everybody, welcome to my booth. I'm Jay, and sibilance is one of those things that some of us have, some of us don't. There are a number of things that contribute to it, make it worse, make it better, and I'll talk about all of that stuff in a moment. Before I dive in though, if you like this stuff and you find it helpful, you can help me out by clicking the buttons down there, and if you're feeling particularly generous, there are other ways to support these efforts and this free resource in perpetuity in the description down there. Check it out if you're feeling generous. So sibilance can be caused by, as I said, a number of factors. The first is just simply how you speak. Some of us have sharper S's than others. And of course, your equipment can contribute to it in certain ways as well. So first thing, with your voice, if you just speak with sharp S's, it could be something that you'd want to talk to a vocal coach about, a speech coach about, maybe in extreme cases, a speech therapist. If you're someone who says, Sally sells seashells by the seashore, and it sounds really sharp and whistly, that could be something that you may want to tackle in a speech setting. There's no real quick fix to that, unfortunately, but it's worth taking the time to invest in. So there's that side out of the gate. However, if your equipment is giving you trouble, you find your microphone really sharp, really bright, there are a couple of things that you can do to help minimize or reduce your sibilance. First, practically speaking, if you've got a microphone that's particularly bright, many of them are classified as bright, you can use one of these foam windscreens. They look in all different types. There's one on this microphone I'm using here, this one for this Neumann. You can put it on top. And the reason why this helps is foam windscreens like this, they tend to tame or reduce the sharpness of the higher frequencies in the microphone's pickup, the microphone's frequency response. And so doing something like this can help to tame that a bit. Of course, the fatter the foam windscreen, the more reduction you will get. I wouldn't go too far on that front, though. So that would be the first thing that you could do if you want to just tame it practically. And then the next is in terms of technical stuff. So if we go here to Adobe Audition, many of us know about DSERs, but if you're not sure how to use it, here's a quick rundown. What a DSER does is it listens to a specific frequency of sound and essentially just turns down the volume on that section of sound. So right now, this DSER is listening to about 5,000 hertz. That's the range that it's listening to. And the bandwidth, it's going to go out on either side for a total of 3,000. So it'll go 1,500 on this side and another 1,500 on the other side. And that's the range at which it will listen and reduce the sound. So if I play this audio, we can see this gain reduction here when it starts to hit the S's. One day when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was... So you see when I say Christopher, Robin Christopher... If I repeat that a couple times, Christopher, you see it reducing on that Chris. And that's a way to reduce it. If I give you the before and after, Christopher, it's very, very subtle because this is not a particularly sibilant or bright microphone. In fact, it's quite dark, but you can see it helping me out and reducing it a bit further. Another way that you can do it, if you don't want the DSER across the whole of your recording, which you may prefer if you don't want that sort of pumping action to happen all the time, you can use a equalizer of some sort. All equalizers will do the same thing in different ways, as I say all the time. But the way to use this, it's the same deal as a DSER. It's just not going to turn the volume down as the S's get louder. It will just keep the S's quieter all the time. And the way to find this out is to find a frequency band here. So I've got this number 4. I turn it up a lot. I'll make the Q really sharp on this particular type of parametric equalizer. And then as I play my audio, if I hunt out for an S, as we found here, Christopher, I can then drag the frequency up and down to hunt out for that particularly harsh S sound. Again, this isn't a sibilant microphone. That isn't a very sibilant S, but we can hunt out where it rests in the frequency range on my recording here. And so once I find it and the S's sound particularly bad, I will then simply reduce the gain to about -3 to -5, depending on how harsh you want to be, and widen that out a bit just to tame those S frequencies. This method can be particularly useful if you're using a really bright microphone. Back when I was using the Rode NT1, that's a pretty bright microphone relative to a lot of others, and I used this to just tame those S's when I didn't want the DSER to be used, because that can turn the volume up and down relatively. The final thing that you can do is use what's called a dynamic EQ. So this plugin here, it has the option for a dynamic EQ. It's the same sort of parametric equalizer where I can raise, bring the Q in sharper, and boost or attenuate specific frequencies. But it also has this little caret on the side. And if I click that, it opens this dynamic option. And I can click either gain or frequency, and they do slightly different things. Gain will turn down the volume on a specific frequency of sound, effectively acting exactly as that DSER that we looked at earlier. It'll do the exact same thing in pretty much the same way, but it just has a little bit more flexibility and surgicalness. It's the same thing with a different tool, more or less. The other option here is frequency. In VoiceOver, you don't really need to use that very much. This is more so for musical applications, at least in my experience of this plugin. So don't worry about it with this one. But what it does is if we listen to this recording and just watch this band, you'll notice it'll turn down the volume. So the white line here is what it's doing to the audio, if it's either boosting or attenuating, turning up the volume or down the volume on a frequency. That white line is saying right now it's not doing anything, but if it goes down, it's turning down the volume, or conversely, if it goes up, it's turning up the volume. So let's just listen to our recording and watch this band as the recording goes on. One day when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was eating and said carelessly, so you can see it dancing a fair amount there, and that just means it's adjusting based on how loud I'm speaking at any given moment. So it will turn down the volume relative to how loud I am. And this can be useful if you don't want to use a DSER in addition to an EQ. This is what I use now because I can do all of my EQ tweaking in one spot. So those are a couple of ways that you can tackle a sibilant problem for yourself. Again, just a rundown. You can use a foam windscreen to tame it manually. You can use an EQ or a DSER in post, or if you find it particularly hard for you just in the way that you speak, you can work with a speech coach or voice coach, and I've had great experiences with a lot of them. They're very good at what they do. Anyway, hope this was helpful for you. Until the next one of these, be well, everybody, and I'll see you there. Toodles.